I get to do something constructive. My pipe has arrived. That is fuel or oil hose, 18mm ID. That's 20, so the lower end is going to be an extremely tight fit, which is what I want, and the top is 16, so that when it's got a big Jubilee clip around it, it should close up fine. So I'll cut that to length. That's my heat protective wrap, because obviously it's near the turbo, and all in all we should have one custom downpipe and drain. I've got an array of gaskets. That's an original Rover one, as is that, I believe. That's a used Rover one. That is a aftermarket one, but you can see the difference between the fittings now. This is why I had to go to such extents to modify it to fit my turbo, because if you look, the one on the top is a standard Rover T25 flange. The one on the bottom is a T28. You can get them with an outlet the same as the T25, but mine perversely has the smaller one, which has been the crux of all my problems and why the original drain wouldn't have worked, because the hole spacing is so very different. You can probably tell by the fact it's now dark that wasn't as straightforward to get in as I'd thought. Basically, access is still poor. In the top I've got those cap heads, but the only way to get it bolted in was to fit the union to the turbo first and then feed the pipe on afterwards. And then down the bottom, access is really tight. I should have used plain nuts and lock washers. I used lock washers, but I also used nylocks, which meant that I had to do incremental tiny little turns for ages before they settled down and nipped up. But by the time I kind of thought that was a dumb idea, I should have gone and got plain nuts. It was too late and I'd committed myself, so I just carried on. But anyway, turbo drain is done. Now I can return to installing all the cooling pack and working out how best to do that. Boy, is it cold today. It's very cold indeed. Everything is frozen. It's about 11:30 now and it still hasn't thawed out, but I'm going to crack on with this. I want to get that intercooler dummy mounted, my Rivnuts in, everything back together, and then I can start working out how to attach the slam panel support and the thing that holds the bonnet latch. Just put a pilot hole through there for the Rivnut. These are the Rivnuts themselves, so I've got to drill a clearance hole, which is really pretty close to the outer diameter of that. You don't want it too slack, otherwise when you pull it up it won't make a very good fit. Hole drilled. Now, I've never used this Rivnut gun before. I did have an old one, but it was crap. It basically damaged the little pulls inside. The idea is you put that in there, pull the triggers, and it leaves it behind. But my other one was really annoying. You had to keep playing with the sort of free length to make sure that when you pulled the levers it was actually pulling it enough. But I'll set this one as it's supposed to be. The diagram in the thing says that you should have a stroke of about 6mm to fully close the Rivnut. So at the moment probably is about 6mm. So what I was checking there is if I measure that distance now that is about 7 or 8. So by the time the Rivnut is hitting that, it will be done. So now if I screw that up to the hilt, we should be good to go. I've learned from experience you don't want to go mega on them because you can end up just snapping the tool off in the Rivnut. So I'll unwind the tool now, put a bolt in it and see how it feels. secure. I mean, this is not a high load application. Most of the weight of this intercooler is going to be bearing on that front panel, but at least we know that's in and fitted now. So that bracket with a little bit more work will bolt up on there, on those two. The intercooler sits on top. Then I can take all the rest of the powder coat. Interestingly, that intercooler, which this bracket was originally cut from, is powder coated. So the bare rally is underneath, which is why it looks so horrible and flaky. So I'll have to bare metal it and clean it up so it looks pretty and radius these corners a bit. But I'll do all that after I've made sure it all fits together. That is in and done, just obviously lashed up for the moment. But the bracket works, proof of concept works. Now I'm looking at trimming the front panel so these intercooler pipes will go through without fretting or rubbing on anything. So I have to somehow, without making sparks and damaging the paint, trim out that metal here and here and without getting sparks in my intercooler, so that'll come out the way. I might actually take the radiator back out again. That's got to come out anyway to have all these brackets painted up. Before I do that though, I might again look at how to install this. That would originally have gone like that. What I'm thinking of doing, cutting this down, building a bracket from this to that, and then back to the top of the rad support bracket so that it's all really stiff. Because what you don't want to do is slam your bonnet and all of this move. So yeah, some head scratching to do. Great thing about it being cold is that metal, when you've been grinding it, cools down much faster. That's tab number 1, that'll go on there, and then just for the hell of it, I'll probably put a Rivnut through that, because I can. I could also weld a nut on the back, but I don't know, I'll see what happens. Can't really be bothered to think about it. But yeah, that will come out now, that'll get welded on there, put a hole through it, paint up these brackets. I can't actually weld all this together because you'd never be able to get the radiator out of the frame. I was about to do that and then realised how stupid that would have been. But yes, that can all come out, be painted, welded, holes put in it. Oh, bollocks. I'll fish that out in a minute. The intercooler, I have just profiled the mount so that it looks a little bit neater. That needs still more tidying up, but that's what I'm doing. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, need to make an extension piece for that so that it comes and picks up on the top of the intercooler. That is that top bit, little 90-degree bracket held on with a Rivnut, and that's what our Rivnut looks like when it's fully compressed. Got Mr. Welder out because I need to weld that tab on up there, and I figured it would probably be easier doing it on the car. Got a bit of cardboard to try and protect the paint, and then I will weld a captive nut on the back of this. Once I've worked out where the hole needs to be, I'll drill it and then weld the nut on off the car. The prettiest welding I've ever done, but it ain't gonna come off, so I'll just nip that back with the sander and then work out where the hole needs to be. Just drilled a pilot hole through there and landed there, so I'll make that middle, whip this all off, tidy that up, drill a hole through there, weld a nut on the back, and then I'll start trimming those bits out. Incidentally, this grinder is a cheapy one from Audi, but has a variable speed, which is great because when you're sanding, I had it turned up quite high then, but for sanding some of these bits I can get it so that it doesn't actually shoot out burning sparks, so hopefully it won't damage the paint in any way. All of this I'm contemplating repainting anyway, just to get rid of marks like that where it was plug welded on and not done particularly neatly, because I didn't do that bit. So I've had that off the car, cleaned it up a bit more. I was going to put a Rivnut through here, but I'm not going to bother now. I'm just going to weld that captive nut thing on the back, which should make for a nice job. the welder settings wrong. So the first one, which was the lower one, wasn't very penetrated. See how it's all blobbing out? The rest of the bottom one and the top one, the welder was about right, so it's all nicely fused. Anyway, once again, none of this matters because it's literally hardly taking any load, but nice to get it right when you can. So I have got nothing else to do in terms of bracketry other than painting stuff. The only other things I need to do is cut this out, which I'm not looking forward to. I'm going to go find lots and lots of blankets and some masking tape and cover it all up. Well, I've been putting it off for long enough, but I'm actually now going to attack the front of the car with the grinder and the sander and the finger sander if I can. Oh, actually I have just found it, it's down there. So wish me luck. Not so bad. I was hoping not to burn the paint and I haven't, which is good. This will all be covered with an edging trim anyway, so I was hoping to have nice radius corners, which is why I was trying to snap it out rather than just cut. I might have to go with the finger sander quickly, just see if I can make these nice and pretty. You might not notice it in the camera, but that is quite a lot neater. There's a few edges which just want to come off, but pretty happy with that. There wasn't much sparking at all really, so I don't envisage any issues. So I will paint protect all of that just to make sure it didn't go rusty, clean it up, and then I can start putting, well, I've got to paint all these brackets black, but other than that I can start putting the front of the car back together properly. I'm also going to take the headlamp rail off again and spray that black because the cold temperatures caused some weird effects with that Jotun paint I put on. Everything that's going to be black is being painted black, or it's drying basically. I have painted it. I just want to put some protection on some of these bits that have raw sanded edges. This is just more of that rust zinc Bonder primer. Might sound like overkill, probably is, but the last thing I want is for this to go rusty. So I'm going to paint it all in this, then go over the top with black, and then I think I still have some edging trim left. If I do, I'll put that on it. If I don't, I won't worry. But basically, I sanded that just to give a little bit more clearance to the radiator. So, well, I don't know why I'm chatting so much. My body does not like the cold. I can hear my shoulders snapping, which is nice. Getting old. That'll do. Bracketry and everything painted. There are the other little brackets, so I can now put stuff back together again. I also put some black paint on the bottom of that bit, black paint around there. I found some edging trim, so I'm going to put that in as well. Found my edging trim, so that's going to go in along there, and I found some super glue just to tack it in a couple of places so they don't keep falling off. Slight change of plan. I'm not using super glue because it's actually a really tight fit anyway. What I've done is instead covered it in Dynax UC anti-corrosion wax, so even though I've painted that, it should definitely not rust now. Cool. Right. Time to get the rad in, I think. So that's the radiator in. Still not touching there. Solid as a rock, which is good. That hose, I think, will need a short extension piece in it to reach comfortably, but that's easy enough to fix. That now being the final position for the radiator, you can see the gap that I've got in there to put the fans in, which is good. That fits nicely, and then I've still got enough room to fit my bigger 12-inch pole fans. Sorry, not 12-inch, 9-inch, what I'm on about. Definitely get one in. Probably get two in with a bit of wiggling. It might be that I have to make some bracketry to hold that pipe in a nice position, but I know I've got space, and that was always the most important thing. So I'm going to put a bit of edging trim on here, get the intercooler dummy mounted again, and then just check that all that's okay. It's going pretty well, apart from here we have a thread which has powder coat in it, so I've got to chase that out with a tap and die. Well, a tap, and then continue. That is in, all in its final positions. I do have wiggle room. All of this is adjustable, as is all of that. So if the bonnet hits or the bonnet panel needs to be tweaked out, whatever, for front bumper doesn't sit right, it can all be moved around if I need to, but it's on there nice and solid, and I am now going to carry on with the intercooler piping and also offer up the front bumper again. I'll put the crash bar back on as well. Still, my work here is not done. That's the BRM grill that I wanted to use. I knew it was slimmer in profile and that it would probably fit, but I was wrong. It's still touching that boost pipe, which means either the intercooler has to go further forward, oh sorry, backward, or I have to modify the grill, or I have to do something completely different altogether. It's so close. That pipe clears everything else perfectly, and my hole, the intercooler just needs to go back a gnat's cock. The radiator isn't the problem, it's that mounting and my bracket here, so I'm going to nip that off and just see how far it will move. By trimming the back side down a little, I now have just about enough room. That's with the bonnet pulled slightly farther forward and the intercooler slightly further back, so it's all going to work, it's all going to be brilliant. I just need to get on and do it. But, oh shit, nearly fell over. Yeah, pretty happy with that. It's going to look good. And I know people were critical of the red, but if I really care, I can paint them black or buy black silicon later, at great expense I might add. But red for the moment. Just had another trial fit of the front bumper and the fans, and I've actually moved the radiator back even further now. Fans are in, well, dummy mounted, they're all okay, and now I'm just putting the edging trim on these bits here with super glue. Playing around with odds and sods of pipe work to see how far away I am from actually getting this plumbed in. Out of the turbo into here is fine. Now I've moved the radiator back, that water hose is fine. Out of the top of the intercooler through to a dump valve or an externally ventilating release valve, whatever you want to call it. But I'm a bit short pipe here, so I'm going to buy, well, I don't know yet. I would ideally like to move this further forward, in which case I'll need a short joiner, and then ideally a long section with then a curve on it, but I don't think you can buy that unless it's part of a kit, so I'll have a look online. Otherwise it will need another joiner. I really don't want lots of joiners, because the more joins you have, the more potential you have for boost leaks, which are not good. So I'll do some more thinking, as I often do. It was quite jammy. I just found a whole load more aluminium pipe from when I was messing around with my turbo Nissan, which I don't think I've done any videos on it ever, apart from driving ones. So if you go on there, you'll see, like in past videos, there's one hooning around the Nürburgring in Germany, which is good fun. 8 minutes 15 bridge to gantry, which is pretty quick. Right. This isn't ideal, and I'm still in the mock-up stage, but I'm hoping that I can cut this off at an angle and yet still have enough area to clamp it and it not be a complete lash up. So I'll mark that, cut it, and see what it looks like. This is a bit of a bodge. I basically marked a centre line on there and then drawn perpendicular, and then basically a bandwidth up so that I can slide a pipe on, clamp it around it. That should work, but it won't be ideal, so I might have to reshape the end of the hose or the pipe if I can. This will all have to be sent away to be polished and then have beaded ends put on it anyway, so I'm still just playing around. Right, this is the last bit of the video. It's all kind of jury rigged, so that does actually work. I'm gonna try and find someone with a beading tool. Where I used to work had one. I might pop back there, or I might even buy one if they're cheap enough. So have a look. The other thing is to, well, next time I'm on the car, is get the air filter in. I have this pipe across, whatever, and that's going to go in there somewhere. But that's for another time. It's been quite a successful day. Got a lot done, and it should be fairly simple from here on in, apart from wiring, which I still need to get my head around. See you later.